Welcome to Law Days and Lattes, the podcast where we blend the world of law and business with a warm cup of information and common sense. I'm your host, Sidney Wheelan, attorney, real estate investor, and business owner. Each week, we'll be your go-to source for legal insights, business advice, and so much more. Whether you're a seasoned professional, an ambitious entrepreneur, or simply someone seeking guidance, we'll have you covered. From navigating the legal landscape to empowering you with valuable business strategies, we'll explore the legal side of life and enjoy a virtual latte along the way. So, grab your favorite latte, get comfortable, and let's dive into Law Days and Lattes. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Law Days and Lattes. I'm your host, Sidney Wheelan. This podcast is sponsored by the Wheelan Law Firm of Moberly, Missouri, your go-to source for legal issues encountered by your family and your business. I would again welcome you to Law Days and Lattes. It is my intention to break down complex legal topics and make them accessible for everyone. Whether you're a legal professional or simply curious about how the law impacts your everyday life, I want this podcast to bridge the gap between the courtroom and the public. With a focus on clear, engaging conversations, we aim to inform, inspire, and spark critical thinking about our legal system and its role in society. Please join us today as we explore the law's influence on real-world issues in a way that's easy to understand and impossible to ignore. In today's episode, we will be covering the new reporting requirements for LLCs and corporations, the Beneficial Ownership Information, or BOI, report mandated by the Corporate Transparency Act, the CTA. This episode will explain what the BOI report is, who needs to file it, and the implications for businesses and their owners. So what is this BOI report? Let's start with the basics. The BOI report is a new federal requirement introduced by the Corporate Transparency Act. This act, which went into effect on January 1, 2024, requires that many types of businesses, including LLCs and new corporations, provide the government with information about their beneficial owners. Essentially, these are individuals who exercise significant control over the business or who own substantial stakes in it. The BOI report is filed with the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, or FinCEN, an agency under the Department of Treasury that works to combat money laundering and financial crimes. So why do we have to file this report? Well, the goal of the Corporate Transparency Act is to prevent anonymous shell companies from being used to conceal illicit activities like money laundering or tax evasion. The BOI report is intended to provide transparency around those who truly own or control a company. Until now, in Missouri, you could set up an LLC with just the name of the registered agent. And remember, the registered agent is just someone or some organization that has agreed to act as your agent to accept service of process if someone needs to reach your company or file suit against your company. The Secretary of State's office in Missouri does not require us to name the owners of the LLC and does not require us to file or register our LLC's operating agreement. There are a few additional requirements for corporations in Missouri, but the ownership information normally available for LLC ownership has been pretty sparse. The required information in the BOI report itself will not be available for search purposes for the general public, but it will be accessible to the federal government. I've received some grumbling about yet another form we must complete and the issue of privacy for our businesses. I think of it much like taxes and other requirements for running businesses. We don't have to like it. It is, however, something that, as business owners, we are required to file, and there can be substantial penalties for not doing so. Now that we know what the BOI report is, let's talk about who's required to file it. Under the CTA, a, quote, reporting company, close quote, must file a BOI report with the FinCEN. In general, this includes most corporations, limited liability companies, and other similar entities created or registered to do business in the U.S. However, the law does provide certain exemptions. For example, companies that are already subject to significant reporting requirements, such as publicly traded companies, regulated financial institutions, and larger businesses with over 20 employees and $5 million in revenue, are exempt. The reasoning here is that these businesses are already transparent in terms of ownership and financial reporting. But if you own or control a smaller business in the U.S., like most of us, you will likely fall under this reporting requirement. Let's go over what information you actually need to report. The BOI report requires identifying details about each beneficial owner of a company. Here's a rundown of the main items. 1, the full legal name. This should be the individual's full legal name as it appears on official documents. The date of birth, self-explanatory, though you'll need to make sure it's accurate and up to date. 3, the current residential or business address. FinCEN requires the actual street address. P.O. boxes are not allowed. And 4, you need the identification number and issuing jurisdiction. This can be a passport number, a driver's license number, or another government-issued ID along with the jurisdiction that issued it. A copy of that ID must be attached to the BOI report when it's filed. If we are filing it for your company, we'll require that you provide us with a copy of a photo identification to attach to the BOI report. It's also important to note that the BOI report requires details for the individuals who manage the company, such as directors and senior officers, if they meet the beneficial ownership criteria. Now, let's talk about timing and consequences. When do you need to file the BOI report? Just so you know, the deadlines and penalties for non-compliance. The deadlines are coming up quickly. Existing companies registered or created before January 1st of this year have until January 1st of 2025 to file their initial BOI report. That's 60 days for those of you who are counting. New companies formed on or after January 1 of 2024 must file their BOI report within 90 days of formation or registration of that LLC or corporation. If you're a small business owner, take note of when your business was formed, as this will dictate your deadline. Please note that as long as the information stays the same for your business, you do not need to file a report every year. However, if you have changes in the information, such as changes in management or changes of address, you're required to update that report. And what happens if you don't comply? Well, failing to file the BOI report can result in serious penalties. Willfully failing to file or providing false information can lead to civil penalties of up to $500 per day until the report is submitted. In more severe cases, there are potential criminal fines of up to $10,000 and even prison time for up to 2 years. It's worth mentioning that these penalties highlight the government's emphasis on ensuring compliance. As a result, it's essential to keep your records in order and submit accurate information. So what are some practical steps that you can take if you're a business owner? First, identify the beneficial owners of your company. Make sure you have a clear understanding of who the beneficial owners are based on the CTA's criteria. Basically, anyone who has an ownership interest or can make management decisions with regard to the company. Next, gather your documentation. Start gathering the required identification documents for each beneficial owner. This includes their ID numbers, addresses, and a copy of their photo IDs. Next, set a compliance plan. Mark your calendar with the relevant deadlines, especially if your business was formed before 2024 because time is running short before the end of the year. Next, consider professional guidance. Depending on the complexity of your business structure, it may be helpful to consult with a legal or compliance professional. They can ensure you're following the rules to the letter and help avoid potential penalties. So, some closing thoughts. The BOI reporting requirement represents a significant change, especially if you're a small or medium-sized business owner. But the intent behind it, to create more transparency and prevent financial crimes, is very important. By keeping track of your filing deadlines and understanding what's required, you can make sure your business stays compliant and avoids any penalties. That wraps up our discussion on the BOI report under the Corporate Transparency Act. We hope this has clarified the reporting requirements and given you a clear path to your business compliance. If you would like me and my team to file the report for you, please reach out to us at wheelanlaw.com. We'll be happy to assist. If you enjoyed today's episode and want to stay updated on similar topics, please subscribe to Law Days and Lattes on your favorite podcast platform and share this episode with anyone you know who may benefit from some of this information. Thanks for listening, and until next time, stay informed and stay compliant. Thank you for tuning in to Law Days and Lattes. Be sure to subscribe, and don't forget to share this episode with your colleagues or other family members who need to hear this message. And please check out our Law Days and Lattes podcast pages on Facebook and Instagram. Our goal is to create a space where we can learn from each other and grow together. So we want to hear from you. Share your thoughts and ask questions. We'll put all of the links in our show notes. I'm Sidney Wheelan, and I'll see you next time. Until then, stay informed and make sure your business reports are up to date. As always, my friends, grab your favorite latte, hold your loved ones tight, and have a great week.
This podcast episode contains general information for discussion purposes only. Each case is different and must be judged on its own merits. Missouri rules generally prohibit lawyers from advertising that they specialize in particular areas of the law. This show should not be construed to suggest such specialization. Nothing on this show should be taken as legal advice for any individual case or situation. This information is not intended to create an attorney-client relationship, and the listening or viewing of this podcast does not constitute an attorney-client relationship. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.